Okay, so picture this for a second. You check your investment account on a random Tuesday night, the way you probably do more often than you'd like to admit, and the number staring back at you is fine. It's not embarrassing, but it's not exciting either. It's the kind of number that makes you think, man, at this rate, I'll be ready to retire sometime around, I don't know, age 95. And every article you read says the same vague thing. Start early. Let compounding do the work. Time in the market beats timing the market. But nobody ever tells you the actual number. Nobody says, here, this is roughly where things start feeling different. So you keep contributing, quietly, faithfully, without any real sense of when the fog is going to lift. My name is Rick, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, about the psychology behind our financial decisions, and about why some people seem to hit a point where their wealth just starts moving on its own, while other people feel like they're pushing a boulder uphill for decades with nothing to show for it. And honestly, the truth is a little more specific and a little more comforting than most people realize, because there actually is a point, a real, identifiable range, where compounding stops being a theoretical concept in a textbook and starts becoming a force you can feel. Not see necessarily. You're not going to get a notification that says, "Congratulations, you've unlocked exponential growth." But feel, in the sense that the account starts doing things that your contributions alone never could. And once you understand where that point tends to sit and why, it changes how you look at every dollar you're not investing right now. So let's get into it. Let's start with the boring but necessary part, because you can't understand the takeoff without understanding the runway. Compounding at its core is just growth building on top of previous growth. Your money makes money, and then that money makes money, and so on. Simple in concept. The problem is that in the early years, this process is agonizingly slow, and it's slow in a way that feels almost insulting. If you've got, say, a few $1,000s invested, and it grows at a healthy long-term average, you're looking at gains that amount to maybe a nice dinner out. That's it. You did everything right. You invested, you were consistent, you didn't panic sell during a rough month, and your reward is a few $100. It's like planting a tree and getting mad that there's no shade after week 3. Of course there isn't. The tree hasn't grown a trunk yet. But here's where it gets interesting, and here's the actual answer you came here for. For most people, contributing consistently over time, there's a rough zone. And I want to be careful here, because this isn't a magic universal number. It depends on your contribution rate and your timeline. But for a lot of everyday investors, somewhere in the neighborhood of the high 5 figures to low 6 figures, things start to shift. Call it roughly the point where your portfolio crosses somewhere around $100,000 to $150,000. That's usually where people start noticing something strange. The account is growing by more in a single good year than they're putting in themselves. Think about that for a second. That's the actual inflection point. Not some far-off retirement fantasy. An actual felt shift where the market's contribution to your net worth starts outpacing your own contribution. And once that happens, something changes psychologically too, which we'll get into, because the math and the mindset are honestly tangled up together more than people admit. So why does this particular zone matter so much? Let's break it down with actual numbers, because vague reassurance doesn't help anybody. Say you're contributing a meaningful amount every month, consistently, into a diversified portfolio. In the earliest years, almost all of your growth is coming from you. If your account grows by, let's say, 8% in a year, and your balance is $10,000, that's $800 of growth. Compare that to the amount you're personally contributing over that same year, and the market's contribution looks almost embarrassingly small next to your own effort. It's like you're rowing a boat, and the current is barely helping at all. You're doing basically everything. But now flip it. Your balance is $120,000. That same 8% growth is now producing almost $10,000 in a single year, more than a lot of people are able to contribute annually out of their own paycheck. Suddenly, the current isn't just helping. The current is doing more work than you are. That's the crossover. That's the moment where compounding stops being a nice idea you read about and starts being an actual co-pilot in your financial life. And here's the thing that I think gets lost in most conversations about this. It's not about hitting some arbitrary milestone so you can post a screenshot online. It's about understanding that the hardest, most discouraging phase of investing is also, mathematically, the shortest phase in terms of impact. The early years feel the longest because the growth is invisible, but they're also the years where your own contributions matter most, which actually gives you the most control. You are the engine in those years. The market is just along for the ride. Now let's talk about why so many people quit right before this point, because honestly, this is the part that breaks my heart a little bit. There's a very real, very human tendency to give up right when the trajectory is about to bend upward. You've been contributing for years. The balance feels stubbornly small compared to the effort you've put in, and there's this quiet, nagging voice that says, "Is this even doing anything?" People pull money out for a car, or they stop contributing to take a break, or they get spooked by a downturn and sell at exactly the wrong moment, right as they're approaching the zone where the math was about to start working in their favor instead of against them. It's a little bit like running a marathon and stopping at mile 24 because your legs hurt and you can't see the finish line yet. You're closer than you think. You just can't see it because the road curves. I want to be honest with you here too. This isn't me saying that hitting $100,000 means you're suddenly rich, or that your financial worries evaporate. That's not how any of this works, and I don't want to oversell it. What I am saying is that there is a real mathematical shift in who's doing the heavy lifting, and understanding where that shift tends to happen can be the difference between quitting in year 6 and pushing through to year 10 when the account finally starts to feel like it has its own gravity. Let's talk about the second big piece of this, which is contribution rate, because the takeoff point isn't the same for everyone. And honestly, treating it like a fixed number for all people would be a little dishonest. Two people can have identical account balances and be in totally different psychological positions depending on how much they're putting in every month. Someone contributing a small amount monthly is going to feel the crossover much more dramatically because their own contributions were never that large to begin with. So it doesn't take much market growth to outpace them. Someone contributing a large amount monthly might not feel the crossover until a noticeably higher balance because their own effort is still a heavyweight in the equation. Neither one is better or worse. It just means the exact dollar amount isn't a single number etched in stone. It's a moving target based on your own habits. But the takeaway is the same for everyone. The crossover exists, it's coming, and the version of you that keeps contributing steadily through the boring years is the version of you that gets to experience it. Here's a metaphor that helped me think about this, and maybe it'll land for you too. Building wealth in the early years is a lot like pushing a shopping cart that has one busted wheel. You know the kind. It pulls to the side, it squeaks, it feels like it's fighting you the whole way through the parking lot. Every bit of forward motion is coming from your own arms. But once you get some speed built up, once there's real momentum in the cart, it starts rolling forward almost on its own, and your job shifts from generate all the force to just keep steering and don't stop pushing entirely. That shift from generating all the force to simply steering and maintaining is basically what happens financially somewhere around that six-figure range for a lot of people. Now let's talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough, which is what happens emotionally once you cross this threshold, because it's honestly just as important as the math. There's a specific kind of relief that comes from watching your account grow in a way that clearly isn't just your paycheck showing up. It's a different feeling than seeing your balance increase because you deposited money. It's the feeling of watching something you built start to operate independently of you, even in a small way. And once you experience that even once, even during a single strong month, it becomes a lot harder to go back to thinking of investing as this vague, distant obligation. It starts to feel real. It starts to feel like proof. I'll admit, when I first noticed this shift happen in my own accounts years ago, I remember sort of staring at the screen a little confused, doing the math twice because I assumed I'd made an error. The growth for that period was larger than what I'd contributed, and there's this weird moment of, wait, is that right? Did the market really just do more than I did? And it had. That was the first time compounding stopped being a phrase from a finance blog and started being something I could point to and say, yeah, that's real, that's happening to my money right now. So what do you actually do with this information? Because knowing about the crossover point doesn't help you if it doesn't change your behavior. First, and this is the unglamorous part, the goal in the early years isn't to chase big returns or take on unnecessary risk trying to speed things up. The goal is simply to survive the boring phase without quitting. Automate your contributions if you can, so that showing up consistently doesn't rely on your motivation on any given Tuesday. Motivation is unreliable. Automation isn't. Second, resist the urge to measure your progress too frequently in the early years, because checking a slow-growing account constantly is a recipe for discouragement. It's like watching a pot that you know isn't going to boil for another 20 minutes. Check in quarterly, maybe, instead of daily. Give the process room to actually work before you judge it. Third, understand that increasing your contribution rate, even slightly, in those early years has an outsized effect on how quickly you reach the crossover zone, because you're adding fuel before the fire has really caught. A modest increase in your monthly contribution during year 2 matters more, in terms of shortening your runway, than the same increase would in year 15. That's counterintuitive for a lot of people, but it's true. The earlier dollars have more years to compound, so front-loading effort, even in a small way, pays off disproportionately later. And fourth, and maybe most importantly, don't panic sell your way out of the runway right before takeoff. The temptation to pull back, or stop, or wait for a better time tends to spike right when things feel slowest, which is often right before the shift. Markets have periods of stagnation and periods of decline, and it's completely normal to feel shaken during those times. But the crossover doesn't happen because you timed something perfectly. It happens because you stayed in the plane long enough for it to reach the speed it needed to leave the ground. There's one more piece to this puzzle that I think deserves its own moment, and it's the question of why this exact number isn't actually fixed in stone from year to year, even for the same person with the same habits. And that's because the crossover point breathes along with the market itself. Here's what I mean. In a year where the market has a strong run, your crossover might arrive earlier than expected, almost like getting a tailwind you didn't ask for. You might hit that six-figure zone and watch it produce growth that outpaces your contributions well ahead of schedule, and it can feel almost too good, like you cheated somehow. You didn't. You just happened to be flying during a good stretch of weather. But then there are years, and anyone who's been investing for more than a few years has lived through at least one of these, where the market pulls back, sometimes sharply, and a balance that was clearly past the crossover suddenly looks like it slipped backward. This is the part that trips people up the most, honestly. They reach that beautiful moment where the account is finally outgrowing their own contributions. They get comfortable with it, and then a rough quarter comes along and the growth column turns negative. It's disorienting. It can feel like the crossover was an illusion, like maybe you imagined the whole thing. You didn't imagine it. A single bad stretch doesn't undo the underlying mechanism. It just means the runway has some turbulence built into it. Compounding isn't a straight, smooth ramp. It's more like a hike up a mountain with a trail that switches back on itself constantly. You gain elevation overall, but there are absolutely stretches where you're walking downhill for a bit, cursing the trail, wondering if you're lost. You're not lost. The elevation gain over the full hike is what matters, not any single switchback. This is also, honestly, where a lot of the emotional discipline in investing actually lives. Not in the boring early years, and not really in the exciting crossover moment either, but in the messy years afterward where the crossover has technically happened but doesn't feel permanent yet. Sticking with your plan through a downturn after you've crossed that threshold is arguably harder than sticking with it during the slow early years, because now there's something real to lose, or at least it feels that way. But selling during one of these dips is often the single most expensive decision a person can make in this entire process, because it locks in a temporary setback and turns it into a permanent one. I'd also add, and this matters for anyone listening who's thinking, well, I'm starting later than I'd like. Does this even apply to me? The crossover concept isn't reserved for people who started investing in their 20s, with decades of runway ahead. It applies at any starting point. It just shows up on a different timeline depending on your contribution rate and how much time you've got. Someone starting later with a higher monthly contribution can reach that same mathematical shift faster than someone who started earlier but contributes less consistently. This isn't a race against other people, it's a race against your own hesitation. Let's bring this all the way back around, because I think it's easy to get lost in numbers and forget the actual point of all this. The reason the exact dollar range where compounding takes off matters isn't because it's a magic finish line. It's because knowing it exists gives you something to hold on to during the years that feel the most pointless. When your account is small and your contributions feel like they're disappearing into a void, it helps enormously to know that this phase has a shape, a beginning, middle, and eventual shift. And that the shift is coming for you too, as long as you keep showing up. Most people quit not because the math failed them, but because they never understood that the slow years were supposed to feel slow. They mistook the runway for the whole flight. And once you understand that the runway has an end, that there's an actual point where the plane's own speed starts doing more of the work than your legs pushing it forward, the whole process becomes a lot less discouraging and a lot more like something you can trust. So if you're sitting there right now with an account that feels small or stagnant or honestly a little disappointing compared to the effort you've put in, I get it, genuinely. But I gently push back on the idea that it means nothing is working. It means you're still on the runway, and the runway, as boring and frustrating as it is not optional. Every single person who has ever experienced that moment of watching their money outgrow their own contributions went through this exact same slow, unglamorous phase first. There's no version of this where you skip it. What you can do is keep contributing, keep it automated so it doesn't depend on your mood. Resist the urge to obsessively check a process that needs time more than attention, and trust that the crossover point is not a myth invented by finance content. It's a mathematical certainty for anyone who stays consistent long enough to reach it. You're closer to it than the boredom is telling you. And when it finally clicks, when you catch your account growing by more in a year than you actually put into it, you'll understand exactly what all of this was building toward. Keep going. The plane's about to leave the ground. Now, if you found this valuable, make sure to press that like button, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.